guys, today we are at the, let's call it the test facility, quote unquote. And we got Crazy Gambit right here causing a ruckus. And basically just wanted to give you guys a little rundown of a smaller room that anybody can run. A lot of these guys running tents at their house are running multiple tents in a room that's bigger than this size, and that might be convenient for them. They might want to have different cycles going on, have much more of a perpetual cycle. That totally makes sense. But this is essentially just a flowering room. Here we veg probably about a week or two, and we flip immediately. So in here we got about 6 of the Lux 645 LED Pros. And these ceilings are about 8 feet tall, so they're pretty short, just a standard ceiling in a regular house. And I got some Panda paper up there, just closing off some of the enclosures, as you guys can see. So anybody can do that if they have a bedroom this size or something similar to this. And my tables are extremely squat. They're probably less than a foot. I think they're about 8 inches off the ground. So that gives us, and the lights are about 2 feet off, so that gives us about 5.5 feet of grow space in between here, which is kind of perfect. That's the exact size plants that I like to grow anyway. So to start, all these are 240s, so you will have to run yourself a MLC. Luckily, my box is right on the other side of that wall, so it was pretty easy just installing that MLC. You just got to get yourself a 30 amp double pole breaker. It's pretty simple if you have the basics of low voltage electrician work, changing out plugs, stuff like that. It's a little more complicated once you get into the breaker box, because you got a lot of live hot stuff going on in there. So if you don't know what you're doing, then have somebody install it for you professionally. At the very least, have them install the breaker and run the wire, and then just follow the instructions on the box. So that's not that hard. And then the whole house has central AC. So for me in here, there is only one vent that goes here. So I just hooked up a max fan in front of it. I took the grate off of it, and I just have the max fan running in here 24/7. So not only is that going to give us great air circulation, but hold on, let me shut this fan off. It's kind of doing some weird clicking. There we go. Sorry about that. So like I was saying, it's going to give us great air circulation, and it's also going to keep the temperatures maintained in here without having to overwork your AC unit. I do have a lot of the other vents closed in all the other spots, but these tables are essentially the tables that I have set up at my other facility, just made at a miniature version. So it's the corrugated roofing on top of a 2x4 frame. Here I did not put the plywood, just to keep everything a little more light duty. I didn't want too much pressure on the hardwood floors. And if I put multiple slabs of 2x4s on the bottom, it'll kind of work like, I don't know if you guys have ever put together like a twin bed, like a twin mattress, not a mattress, a twin bed frame, and it has the multiple slates on the bottom and the bed frame rests fine on it. So that's kind of the objective here, what we're going for. And you just turn your 2x4s from being like you would if you are framing a house to flat this way. Kind of gives it a little extra support. And it runs down into the rain gutter there, and it drains here. And from that drainage, we actually just harvested in here, so I still got a little bit of cleaning up to do. But from that drain, I just have it going up, PVC running through, going into the bathroom, down the drain, and all that stuff, all that good stuff. So basically, same setup, guys. Same setup. I got 4 of these oscillating fans, just keeping everything kind of moving in here. And we got CO2 tank hooked up on a Air Pilot controller, which I don't think they sell these anymore. I think Autopilot went out of business, so I don't think you're going to be able to find those anymore. But they sell a lot of good ones. Easy install. 20-pound tank. You refill your tank. 10-15 bucks. You know what I mean? Yeah, you just run your CO2 tubing. Got my CO2 tubing running all the way across the top here, and basically you always want your CO2 line above the plants, because CO2 is heavier than than oxygen and nitrogen, so it's just going to fall down, and you want it to just cascade over the plants nice and easy. Per usual, running the octobubblers, and this is basically my mixing station. So this is our primary reservoir, and this fills up with RO. Always has, so we just got a ball valve here. Always has RO going to it with a fill valve on it. And this is basically where we get our fresh water from. So from our fresh water station, we fill up our 50-gallon sub reservoir, and inside here is where our nutrients go. And from there we have a little giant hooked up. So these are the little giants. Super dependable pump, very powerful. Like you can see, this one pump is feeding 8 of those octobubblers. Now at my other spots, I have one of these pumps feeding. It's feeding 4 octobubblers at once. That's just because I want it to be a little overpowered to make sure that all the drippers are getting sufficient water, and we want them to have multiple waterings a day. So I just need to make sure that they're on point. Here, I run it on 8, but I just run it twice as long as I do on the 4. So they run a little bit less. They run a little bit less power per dripper, but it works sufficiently. You just gotta water just a little bit longer, which I'm not sure if I like one or the other, you know. I do like the fact that these drip a little bit slower, so it lets the water saturate through and really get into the cubes, as opposed to just running off the top or just being a little too aggressive and it just kind of like just tunneling through the rock wool. So that's also why we do use the FloorFlex, though. The FloorFlex really helps with dissipating the water instead of having to just run off the top, because everybody knows that when you grow rock wool, you're going to get algae on top. And especially if you're not using covers, either cocoa covers, or you're not using the FloorFlex covers, you're gonna get hella algae on top, and it's not gonna really allow for water penetration to get through. Even when you do have the stake drippers that stab into the rock wool, you're still gonna run into problems occasionally. You know, you stick that rock wool in there, and what I like to do, I'll show you guys before I put the FloorFlex on, but what I'll do is I'll get a Sharpie or something similar of this size, and what I do before I put my FloorFlex on is I poke 4 holes right around here, only about this far in, you know, because again, we don't want tunneling, but we do want these to be able to puddle up and dissipate inside of the rock wool, even when we do have the FloorFlex. And you can see when the FloorFlex goes on here, so you're gonna have this little gap right here, and if you put the hole in the right place, what tends to happen when you don't have that hole there is when these things fill up, the water, and the clone is in here, the water tends to want to run through this crevice right here and just completely run out and fall off on the side. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about later on once I transplant. Maybe I can get you guys a video while I'm watering. But yeah, that's a technique that I kind of learned. It is a pain in the ass when you got hundreds of plants to do it to, but it does help, and it does make sure that you're getting proper waterings. So back to the watering system. One thing that I did have a problem with when I first installed this, and I didn't think about it, was siphoning. And this, to counteract the siphoning, we just got a check valve. So they sell these at Home Depot, pretty cheap. You know, you just get yourself a nice check valve. All my other spots, my pump coming out of the reservoir is usually below the table, so I don't have a problem with siphoning. So I didn't even think about it, to be honest, when I first put it on, but quickly realized after I came home one day and my whole reservoir was drained right after transplanting. Good thing it was right after transplanting, because the plants were able to take the stress of not getting water, actually getting overwatered and then not getting water the next day. But anyway, I was able to figure out that's exactly what happened. Was it siphoned out, didn't think about it, put a check valve, problem solved, easy peasy. And this, like I said, this pump is extremely powerful, and it kicks on pretty strong, so it had no problem just getting it done. Getting past the check valve and still being able to water everything sufficiently. I was worried about it initially when I installed it, but it wound up turning out fine. So And then, like I said, with the drainage, I got a timer over there on the drainage, and the timer is set to go off every watering and then twice in the afternoon. When I do have the dehumidifier in here, it's in the dry room right now, but when I do have the dehumidifier in here, just to clean that water out of the dehumidifier. Carbon filter in the corner, usually have a fan on there, but again, move that fan over to the dry room just to be sufficient. I do have this other fan, but nothing's in here right now, so no point in wasting any extra electricity when it's not necessary. Okay, other than that, yeah, we're feeding crop salts, veg A and B. So usually I run, so you can see the gray highlighted area right here. They're recommending 3, so I run about 4.6. I run the third one down, 4.6. Sometimes I'll go a little bit heavier, and that, like I said in the other videos, that leaves me around 2.3 EC or so. And so that's for veg A. And then veg B, we run 300 grams, 3.10 grams per gallon. So in a 50-gallon reservoir, it's 150 grams, or 300 grams in a 100-gallon reservoir. I'm usually working in 100-gallon reservoirs, which is why I said 300. But anyways, I digress. So yeah, that's it. Just wanted to give you guys a little quick rundown. I'm gonna go ahead and get started on this, get these things transplanted, and we'll come back to see what it looks like after. Actually, let's see if we can get some plants in here. YouTube's been a little extra harsh on me, so I'm trying to keep the plant exposure to somewhere after the first minute or two of the video. But like I said, this is kind of a test facility, so these are some new strains that some I've ran and some that I have not yet. So in here we do have the original Skywalker OG from, I think it's from like 2017 or so. I finally got back in touch with the guy that provided me with that back then, and just so happens he had the strain still in stock. So we'll see if it's the same cut, see if he's bullshitting me. I won't know until it comes out. And then we got the Oaksterdam. That's the original Oaksterdam from Oaksterdam University. It comes out of the Originals factory in downtown LA. I know somebody who works in their facility. They wound up getting me the genetics. Great stuff. And then we're running the LA Gelato, which I do have at the other spot. So we'll see how nice I can get it. I'm gonna try a couple different manipulative tactics in this room, see if I can get some different results. And then we have a gumbo cut, which is essentially like a lemon cherry cross. It's pretty nice. We'll see how it comes out, but yeah, let me get these things transplanted in, and we'll go through how we saturate and water and get these things ready. And I'm gonna try to keep you guys logged in on this whole run here, at least weekly, at least. Any comments, questions, leave them down below, but I'll be right back. All right, guys, just wanted to give you a little root porn, you know. So basically, we're just gonna get these girls right here, and we're gonna plug them dry. Plug them dry. Plug them dry. Bam. 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 Alright, and then once I get them all plugged in, we're gonna come through and we'll give them all 5 seconds just to give the rock wool a little bit of weight, honestly, and to get them a little bit moist, so that way when I come through and I plunge all the holes like I was showing you in all the rock wools, they stay put, because you know how light these things are. It's like air, you know what I mean? So you got to give them a little bit of weight so they'll hold while you plunge those holes in them, and then put all the Floraflex on after. But yeah, I'm gonna get that done, and I'll be right back. All right, so we got everything all transplanted. I'll show you guys right now, but I had to get my camera set up because we're gonna do a mix, and I'm just gonna show you how easy it is to mix crop salts. It's dead simple. So for this system, I'm not sure if you guys can see, but we're just gonna plug our little giant in and then turn our ball valve, get this thing filling up. We got our scale here, and we're gonna take our small measuring cup here and get our, go ahead and tear this scale. Open up our bag here, and like I said, we're at 4.6 grams per gallon. This is a 50-gallon tote here, and the math to that is 2.3 grams. So for 50 gallons, 230 grams. And we're just going to scale this out real quick. Shouldn't be too hard. Now, I know a lot of guys like using those bottled nutrients, but I'm telling you, some of them are like House and Gardens. House and Gardens has a pretty affordable A&B. You know, I think it's about 70. I think it's about 70 to 80 bucks. I don't know. I haven't bought it in years, but about 70 to 80 bucks a 5 gallon per 5 gallon, which is great. You know, it does make it. It is super simple to use, and it is a good nutrient line. But anything else from Canna to Advanced, I mean, I've used it all, guys. For whatever nutrient line you could think of, I've used Botanicare, I've used, except for more of the new ones. Like I never used Rock when it came out, I never used Emerald Harvest, things like that. But yeah. So basically, this is 300 grams. Sorry, get sidetracked. It's not 300 grams. This is 235 grams. I like to give it a little extra. We're just gonna take this, pour it in here, just like that, right? Start backfilling this up a little bit. Now this stuff dissolves pretty easy as long as your water's not super cold and you have enough volume of water to powder. Which if you're mixing direct into the res, that works too, but I find that it's harder to get the sediment up from the bottom sometimes when you're in a bigger res, especially with the way that this thing is the schematics of all the PVC piping and stuff. It tends to get in the way of me getting a proper mix in there. So I just like to pre-mix it in this bigger container here. And like I said, it dissolves pretty quick. Should be good. We'll just take a little bit out here, pour it in, and if there's any sediment at the bottom here, we'll go ahead and just give this a little extra stir, pour that stuff in there. Alright, remember this thing is still filling, so the water is somewhat circulating in there. Then we're going to take our measuring cup, re-tare it, switch out these nutrients. So we're going to go veg B. And this is 300. This is 3 grams, 3.10. So I just call it 3 grams, give or take. You know, you don't gotta be super perfect with this stuff. We're, like I said, with the grams that we're using per gallon, the margin of error, I kind of leave it open to have 1 or 2 points below or above the EC that we're looking for. And the EC that we're looking for is anywhere from 2.3 to 3.5. You're kind of pushing it if you're getting up to the 3.5 range, but you know, sometimes you gotta push the ladies. And if you do push them, just be conscious of it, so that way you can either flush them or run a little bit more water during their dry backs to kind of lower that EC, dilute those salts inside of the cubes. And just make sure that your pH is on point. So same thing with this. We're just going to go ahead and mix in the B here. Super simple method, guys. Nothing fancy. Like I said, I've been doing these smaller grows for as long as I've been growing, and I tend to stick to a lot of what isn't broken, don't fix it. Down in my other spots, I tend to have a couple other automated features just to help me with time, because you can see anybody that farms, anybody that gardens, you guys know how much time this shit takes, and anything you can do to make it a little bit easier without compromising on the end product is great. But all right, so that's pretty much that. Let's see what our pH is. So we're at 5.4. So we'll throw a little dash of baking soda in there. Just a little dash of baking soda. Just a little diggity dash. Sometimes I use pH up, but oh, got a little spillage there. But usually just a little bit of baking soda is fine. And our EC is 2. Oh, we're a little high. We're a little high on that, but that's okay. That's all right. What we'll do is we'll get our first initial watering. Oh, look at these little floaties right here. Get these out of there before they clog a dripper. What we'll do is do our first initial watering, and then we'll backfill with some fresh water just to kind of bring that down. And I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, I'm going to water these for about 5 seconds each, and then we're going to poke holes in all of them and then put all the FloraFlex caps on and get everything watered in. Probably hook up these drippers today. I don't think I'm going to have them run quite yet, but I am going to hook them up so that way they're just ready to go when the time comes. Yeah, I'll be right back. All right, guys, pretty much all done here. Got all the FloraFlex caps on after we poked all those holes. Watered them in about 10-15 seconds, depending on how strong your hose is. Give them about 30% runoff, you know. These will not go on drippers today. Most likely tomorrow. I want to give them the overnight to kind of settle in, let the roots get established just a little bit, and let the rock wool dissipate some of the moisture out of there before we put the drippers on. And they'll probably go on tomorrow, and by the 3rd day we'll get them running, and we'll probably get them running at 3 to 4 waterings, probably 3 waterings for the first day, and then bump them up every day after that, 4 or 5, all the way till we get to about 6 waterings a day. And I'm gonna try to keep track of this, keep you guys along, upload every week. I know this video is kind of long for you guys that are still around. Thanks for watching. I know, like I said, it's a long one, but I just wanted to give you guys a full breakdown of a whole reset, fresh run, get you guys started, start to finish, and kind of give you a little insight on all the methods. If you guys got any questions on any of the methods, anything like that. No CO2 for today. I will probably get the CO2 installed tomorrow, if not the day after that, and we'll be running at about 900 ppms or so. Temperature is going to be at 85 degrees, and so VPD, for those of you that do know, I want to run about 1.1 to 1.3. So in layman's terms, we're going to do 85 degrees as far as our temperature goes, and keep our humidity between 75 and 85%. Just very moist in here. I want to feel in like a jungle up in here. And then after I had mixed, I know I told you guys that EC was a little high, but after I let it settle down and sit, it was at about 2.6. And also, okay, I know, don't judge me. You guys can think whatever you want, but I'm telling you that it works. I've ran teas, I've ran sugars, I ran carbohydrates, I've ran all these things, and at the end of the day, running a sterile system is going to be the best thing you could do in hydro, especially if you're going to be running rock wool or any kind of inert media that you're going to be adding nutrients to. So what I do is I add about 0.20 milliliters per gallon of bleach. So for 100 gallons, I go ahead and use about 20 milliliters, and for this 50 gallon, I use about 10 milliliters of bleach once a week, only during veg. And really, that's going to help, especially if you guys are bringing in clones from other facilities or things like that. That's really going to help combat any viruses or anything that you're bringing from those other facilities. HLVD is a huge problem in the grow industry right now, and bringing in any new strains is always a roll of the dice if you're going to have HLVD. So the only thing that kills that stuff is not alcohol, it's not any hydrogen peroxide, nothing like that. The only thing that kills that virus is bleach, and that's why you really want to clean everything with bleach. And I run this system just in the beginning. Okay, sorry about that. Camera ran out of storage there. But as I was saying, only thing that kills that stuff is bleach, nothing else. So just, I know I know it's going to be hard to believe. Do your research. Do whatever you like. Look up Crop Salt's website. They do recommend it as well, and I've noticed tremendous difference in root zone health and things like that if you're running a sterile system. No more pythium, no more any kind of root diseases or anything like that. That little bit of bleach every watering is going to just every week for one reservoir or 1 to 2 waterings at 0.20 per gallon of bleach is going to help you guys out in the long run. I promise you. For those of you guys growing organic, I mean, you do your thing. I've done it before. I've been there before. I've grown organic before. It's a pain in the ass, and product is sometimes better. I guess you could say that. Like, yeah, every organic grower out there is gonna say it's always better, but I'm telling you that it's sometimes better. You're gonna get runs where your PK is off, and these things are gonna be off, and the only way to really test any of that stuff is with slurry method, and even with the slurry method, you're still not gonna get accurate results. So anyway, I'm rambling, guys. Comments, questions, leave them down below. Thanks for tuning in, and I will try to make the next video a little bit shorter. For those of you guys that stuck around to the end, appreciate y'all. Happy farming. Peace.